Hello, everybody. Welcome to the RSN podcast. We're right here talking, and we're right here in the pills that the little setup that we have here. That we usually have. Been over. Can you guys believe it? It's been over a year. We're in 2016. You know that? It's crazy. But
I can't believe it's already been a year since we've been doing this.
it's been a long year. It's crazy, and we're about to reach our 1 year mark, and I believe it's March or May, something like that. But I mean, we're here basically right now to talk about our podcast that we've been talking about and making for a long, long time. The Year in a Review podcast. Basically summing up the whole year of 2015, talking about what happened in professional wrestling. Basically, a lot of stuff has happened. In the big year that we've had from 2015, January to December, a long list of things. It's really hard to imagine that it all that happened. We were just talking about this, me and Rich, about there's been almost how many, like almost thousands of matches, maybe tens of thousands of matches that happened in the course of 1 year. It's crazy from the different promotions. I mean, if you think about it, it's crazy. It's like how can you follow up with that? But yeah, nonetheless, we're talking about the best of the year in 2015. A lot of things happened. From ROH to Lucha to WWE, and a bunch of other stuff happening, ICW and a lot of other stuff. But I mean, simply put, it's been a pretty big year for a lot of things, you know. And also, you can check. I mean, I gotta ask, Nick, how do you guys, how do you follow up with this? All these different promotions coming out. It must have been a big year, as to follow up on all this, right? On PWO, right?
Yeah, for those who aren't or new to the show, welcome. My name's Nick Lopez. I am the owner, editor-in-chief of ProWrestlingOpinion.com, offering the deepest, most exclusive, in-depth coverage of companies like WWE, we got TNA, Lucha Underground, Ring of Honor, what else is there? Pro Wrestling Syndicate. We also just added a couple of other new companies, West Coast Wrestling Connection and AML Wrestling, which is America's Most Liked Wrestling. You can find those companies on YouTube where they post their weekly shows. Yeah, going off of what you said. The funny thing is, as you're following the year, watching all of these companies, you can kind of concentrate, while you're watching the show, because we also cover ROH as well. So around the time, like, let's say when Lethal won both had the TV title and the world title, marking down that moment in history, you were really able to concentrate on that. And then Rollins was, world heavyweight champion and United States champion. So it's funny because it was kind of happening around the same time. And when you're following both companies, you can kind of bounce back and forth and really look at the similarities that you wouldn't really do if you were just focusing, let's say, on one company. And then you have a company like TNA who's just bouncing around, I will say the World Title Series was experimental, but it really worked out for the format of the show. I don't think they really followed up on that well enough, but for the time being, it was good enough. And going off a promotion like Lucha Underground, which I think was consistently the most entertaining, especially with Ultima Lucha, which was basically their version of WrestleMania. You can kind of see how every company kind of brought something different to the table. And, you can only get that when you follow each and every company, kind of at the same time to see who's doing what match, who's got what rivalry going. You can really compare and contrast when you got that going on. So 2015 was a really exciting year. I'm not going to protest that a single bit. Plenty of big moments. I have my personal favorites. I'm sure you guys have yours. Sure, this is a good moment right now to throw it back to what exactly we'll be talking about over the course of the show.
Yeah, I mean, you could put it in the right way. I mean, 2015 was, a lot of big things happened. But also on the other side, there were a lot of bad things that happened. And, that's always in every single situation. There's always the best and the worst, But, I mean, like you said, a lot of promotions, a lot of different things. I don't know how you keep up with it, man. It's a big, it's a whole hellstorm. But, I mean, it's really crazy. Well, for the purpose of this podcast, we're specifically going to talk about what moments or what major things in the wrestling industry really influenced the year and really played a big role in the performance of the year. Because there's many different things, a lot of different categories that can you can place this into. Um, Recently on WWE, all these different outlets that have different kinds of awards, ceremonies or at year end. Uh, Awards things and everything like Wrestling Observer and all this other stuff. The magazine, they always have this list of what superstars have done really good performance wise and all that other stuff. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about 10 different categories. We're just gonna break it down. There's gonna be different categories, and we're gonna talk about what aspects of the year really influenced us the most. Specifically, we're gonna talk about right now. What I'll do is I'll start off with for the year, and this is basically pertaining not just only to WWE, but any other promotion or any other company that you feel has been really standing out. So let's start. We're gonna talk about right now about the breakout star of the year. So Rich, let me just pass it on to you because you haven't gotten a moment to speak. So you can go ahead and let us out on this.
All right. Hello, everyone. This is Rich. Since I'm the only one who didn't announce themselves so far, with the first category, we're doing Breakout Star of the Year. Like Sal just said, it could be any superstar from any company, but all three of us had decided on a few categories where we picked the same person. This happens to be one of them. The superstar we picked for Breakout Star is Kalisto from the Lucha Dragons. Sal, would you like to explain why you picked Kalisto?
Well, I mean, it's true. We all got together and we unanimously picked Breakout Star of the Year as Kalisto. Well, Kalisto has been, you can trace back his history back to where he's, started from till now. I mean, he started very, very, small at, in his home and everything, and he slowly went up the ranks to, from the Indies to AAA, and then here in WWE. I mean, it's been one hell of a year for him, and there's been a lot of stuff that's happened. I mean, if you take it back to the very beginning of this year, from being called up from NXT to come all the way up to WWE, that was a big step right there. That's a big window of opportunity right there for them. Not just for Kalisto, but also for Sin Cara, or as we like to call it, the fake Sin Cara, because there's a whole lot of pending lawsuit and all this other stuff going on with the real Sin Cara and everything. But I mean, nonetheless, the Lucha Dragons, they have had a lot of impact. And, specifically Kalisto, whenever you saw him come out, it was a show. Because you would always see something very, very crazy, happening over there. But, besides all the performance that he would do, there'd be a lot of very innovative stuff that he would, perform and everything. Besides the cliche head scissors, takedown, or, the Frankenstein or whatever, all that other stuff. But nonetheless, we all picked Kalisto for basically one purpose, that, he's very, very innovative with his style. And you can see that he's kind of bringing that off, and, they're kind of teasing it, playing it off with Lucha, with their whole, the high-flying gimmick and all that other stuff, and luchador style. I mean, it's a lot that can be said, What about you, Nick?
Yeah, Kalisto's kind of started to break out, like, when you actually think of quote-unquote breakout, probably with the injury to Sin Cara has kind of benefited him, because they know he could carry the ball and get himself over, and lo and behold, that's what's happening. But he's kind of been on the ups like the whole entire year. He started off the year as NXT Tag Champions with Sin Cara as the Lucha Dragons. They got their call up on the post WrestleMania Raw to a pretty big reaction. They kind of been holding steady. Sin Cara has a pretty bad internet reputation, sure, but if anyone's going to team with him successfully, Kalisto has been that guy that you could count on. And, it's a really good thing that he's starting to branch out. I'm not going to argue, but I think the moment that really had people start to really pay attention to what this guy could really do was that, Salida del Sol off the ladder drew that other ladder at TLC. That really, that got people's attention, and I think his momentum has only grown further from that point. With or without the injury to Sin Cara, I think the path for this was kind of due regardless. Sure, they probably wanted to continue the Dragons team, but with Sin Cara out for the time being, it's not a bad time to push Kalisto as a single star because he can use it. He's got an innovative offense, as Sal said. The guy can entertain. And that's what it comes down to in WWE. If you're not there to entertain, Vince doesn't really have much use for you, and this guy could do it.
True. Well said. I mean, also you can also take into account, the fact that WWE doesn't really have a Latino star. I mean, taking out the fact that they had one later on, that being Del Rio, after the fact that he came out as a surprise for an Hell in a Cell facing John Cena, eventually winning and making a big uproar right there. But I mean, the fact that Rey Mysterio is missing, now they have this void that gotta fill. But now the question is, who's gonna fill that void? They've had a lot of Latino stars there. You could talk about Eddie Guerrero, you could talk about Chavo, all the whole Guerrero family, but there has to be someone to take that torch and take it to the next level, and there has to be someone. I mean, you got to think about it. The Latino population is growing fast in America. It's probably the second largest population right now to date. So, they are doing a very smart move by pushing Kalisto, and hopefully it pays off. But, I mean, Richard brought up a really good point about, the single star and also the tag team. Also the fact that this is actually going to take us into our next pick, our next category, for a tag team of the year. Again, this is another category that we unanimously picked. The tag team of the year that we said obviously has to go to the New Day, because you can already say, but the New Day is really, really interesting. I mean, there's no argument with that. You guys would say the same, right? They're pretty interesting, right?
Yeah.
They're a very exciting team to watch.
I mean, the way they cut their promos is it's organic, it's not written off a piece of paper by Kevin Dunn and all, by all his other lackeys and everything, It's straight off the bat, right there, full reaction, and you could tell it's organic, like, it's no bullshit. But that's what makes it a really good thing, it's pretty interesting. You see them coming out doing all kinds of other, crazy stuff, comedic, very entertaining. But to see where they came from is pretty good. I mean, you guys remember from when they were starting out, right? They made their debut when? Like, it was like sometime was it in 2014 or 2015?
November 2014.
November 2014. So that's about 2 years. So if you see them now, then and now, they were getting booed out the building and all this. Merchandise wasn't selling. Now you see them. Everybody you see, there was always having a T-shirt that says New Day on it, or they're having the horns, and it's a big phenomenon right now. I say I go as far as to say that it's probably as big as the Bullet Club. Wouldn't you guys say?
I wouldn't quite say that, because Bullet Club is kind of like a lead top heel stable, except you could take them seriously as main eventers, and they kind of span several promotions. New Day has them beat out in the comedy category, though. They've had moments where they've been thrown around at the top of the card. You kind of send them out for a six-man main event, and throw in like Ambrose, Reigns, and Ryback, or Ziggler, Ryback, and Neville. You can match them up with any other three guys on a team, and you could bet they would still put on one hell of a match. Going into a little bit of why I picked them, I mean, it's really crazy how much of a comeback they had. All they really had to do was just be themselves a little bit more, except a little bit more annoyingly, embracing the boos that they had. For the main reason that they got the negative reaction in the first place was because fans didn't really buy the act. They didn't really sell the gimmick as anything more than three positive black guys, and the whole gospel thing, and it just didn't connect. Yeah, sure, the athleticism and their team maneuvers were impressive. So sure, they could win you over with their athleticism, but at the end of the day, it comes down to the gimmick itself, and the gimmick wasn't working. You know that when they were being paired up against other heels like Tyson Kidd and Cesaro, and Kidd and Cesaro were getting cheered. That's what actually caused the double turn of Kid Cesaro from heel to face and New Day from face to heel. But that's when the whole transition started and everything began to change. Because then you began to actually see the New Day for what we know them now as what I like to call the twerking rainbow unicorn gods, you know? It kind of sums up their act all in one. And then you just throw in a trombone and, you know, it's entertaining as hell. Like, I've almost died of laughter sometimes after some New Day promos, and with the help of the internet to make some of their other promos really kind of come to life, you know, with memes and GIFs. It's really a modern day, you know, comedy act, except they could actually wrestle and put on a really good show. So a little bit of those reasons are why I picked New Day.
True.
I picked the New Day because, like Nick said, their promos are just golden, but the fact that all three of them work together, and if you put all three of their chemistry in the ring together, it's amazing. Out of the ring, their chemistry is amazing also, because you have Xavier Woods as their hype man, basically, because if you think about it, he hasn't really wrestled that much. You have Big E, the muscle, Kofi, the speed and the athleticism, and some of their quotes that they say are just hilarious, like the Rudy Tooty Booty. Everything to them is booty, which is hilarious, but they deserve Tag Team of the Year, and if they get booked properly, I see many more Tag Team of the Years coming for them in the future.
I think that they were actually, yeah, I mean, to your point, I mean, they were probably one of the greatest one great tag team in this era right here. I mean, because we've had tag team after tag team come, and it feels like they've been spoon-fed down our throats, and we're like, enough. We want something, something that's real, something that can actually speak to us.
Like the Dudleys. They were basically thrown down our throats in the summer of 2015.
True, and I mean, if you've seen the year that they had, they did a really good move by having, not winning the tag team of the year. In a way, it's good and bad, but it's kind of like, why, But it's pretty good because the promos coming after that was pretty, it was pretty entertaining. Because if you've seen the Brooklyn Raw, they're actually teasing, like, they were talking about the fans, and they're like, oh, so you guys want us to sing? And they're like, yeah. Everybody's like, oh, yeah, And then next thing you know, oh, but you guys didn't vote for us as Tag Team of the Year. That was epic. I mean, that's grabbing, like, automatic heat right there. And whatever they do, it always grabs some kind of reaction. Good, bad, negative, positive. It's always something, and that's the main point. I mean, it feels like at a point they were actually pointing, like, they were pointing a gun to their head, saying, okay, if you guys don't entertain or if you guys don't do anything or don't get any reaction, we're going to cut you guys off. And, I think they had to dig deep down and say, okay, what can we do to make this more better? What can we do to prevent that? And that's, it's pretty good to see them, do that. But that's, we all discussed why we thought that, the Tag Team of the Year should be them. And it goes, truly for them. They earned it. And that goes into our next category, Rivalry of the Year. So there's been many rivalries, very, very, ones that have been overrated, some of them that have been underrated, some very, very, over-the-top rivalries, some of them that have been very, very, little rivalries and dimmed out. But we all, we all gathered our minds and said we wanted one pick also. So we said we wanted to have one rivalry that's throughout for the whole year. And that would be Rivalry of the Year as Kevin Owens versus John Cena. I mean, if you pan this back, this is probably over the span of 2 months. Probably, no, not even 2 months. Probably 3 pay-per-views altogether.
Yeah, 3 pay-per-views.
3 pay-per-views, right? So it was Elimination Chamber, Money in the Bank, and what was the last one?
Battle.
Battleground. Yeah.
Yeah, Battlegrounds.
But I mean, if you see how they started to where they ended, it was a pretty good feud. But I felt like they could have gone a lot, and they could have gotten a lot farther with that. But they failed to, keep that on. I mean, if you see in the beginning, it started out in Elimination Chamber, where you saw U.S. Open Challenge.
It started out before that, remember?
Started out even
Owens
before
came
that
out.
one. Yeah.
No, but Owens didn't. He wasn't announced. I think he was actually unannounced.
But that was the
Yeah.
beginning of the rivalry, though, when
Yeah.
Owens came out.
Yeah, when Owens, I mean, we totally didn't, we didn't expect it. I mean, there was rumors for sure, but we didn't actually expect Owens to come out. And we actually, at one point, the fans actually thought, oh shit, this is his call up. But then they were thinking, okay, he's the NXT champion, so how does that work? But nonetheless, it was a great rivalry because you saw something, magical happen right there. Because that same night, it was his open challenge. And, it was just a plain open challenge. The U.S. title wasn't online or anything. And, he just said, all right, fine, I'm ready to face anybody. So Owens came out, challenged him, 1, 2, 3. They both got into a fight. It was probably one of the greatest matches that we've ever seen of that year. But, nonetheless, that's going a little bit further. Later on, we have a match of the year category. That's what we're going to talk about. That's personally what I picked. But moving further, the rivalry of the year, that stood out to me the most. I mean, for sure, we all have our points. But I think what stood out to me the most was that Owens beat him on his first night. That's something big to say. What were your thoughts, guys?
I personally think Owens-Cena was one of the best rivalries because, like you said, no one expected that to happen. But 2 out of their 3 matches that they had were 5-star matches, hands down, without a doubt. Just for the fact Owens, for a big guy, he can move. He puts on a hell of a show whenever he steps into the ring, even though I don't like him that much. Yes, Sal, I don't like him. You love him. I don't think he's as good as Balor, but he puts on a show whenever he's in the ring. And you throw him against the Golden Boy, John Cena, it was magic. The promos they cut against each other were amazing also, on top of that.
In a way, it's kind of like opposites. It's like the Cena from our universe and then the Cena from the parallel universe. Because if you've seen the stuff that they've done in ROH with, Kevin Steen's merchandise, Kill Steen, Kill, all that Rise Above stuff, they basically mimic each other. I mean, you see Cena, he's a fit guy, everybody knows him, he's in the public eye, he's an actor, he's a success. And he's overrated. And then you see Owens, he's kind of he's overweight, he doesn't fit the mold. He's not an actor, he's not that successful, but he's underrated and people love him, So that was perfect.
And if you guys want a good laugh, type in on YouTube Kevin Owens ROH farewell. One of the fans throws him a John Cena action figure. And he's like, oh, John Cena's here. And just throws the action figure into the crowd. It's amazing.
It's a perfect way to bring him up, too, in WWE.
Nick, what was your reason for picking Cena Owens?
Yeah, actually, I think this feud really opened a lot of people's eyes in a good way. First, for the reason that NXT really got the spotlight being on Raw, because then people watching Raw Live were like, holy crap, the NXT champion is on Raw, standing up to John Cena. Whoa, I really need to tune this in. The internet probably broke down because it was Kevin Steen stepping up to John Cena and pretty much just laying him out. The promo exchange was golden. Owens had a really hot shot trailed through the main roster in NXT, and they handled it pretty delicately every step of the way, while not losing everything that Owens' character is all about. He's a prize fighter, a family man, just providing for his family. The way he goes about things are all for himself, and people don't agree with it, but he could put on a really good match, as we saw when he got the chance to fight John Cena for the first time at Elimination Chamber. And as many internet fans already probably knew, he could cut a really mean promo, and he put all those factors together and the ideological differences of Cena and Owens, put them in the ring. I don't think anyone quite expected their chemistry to be so slick and on point, but once we got a taste of what they could offer us, the sky was the limit, and they stole the show at Elimination Chamber. Owens actually getting the win was probably the biggest benefit of his of the year for him, because then he got to brag, hey, I beat John Cena in my first WWE match, something not anyone got to do. And then the feud just carried on from there with a little bit more of a personal storyline, because Owens' own son, he was saying he grew up rooting for John Cena and not him, feeling like Cena took away the role model that he wanted to be for his son. Boom, there you got a personal edge to it. And then the two went out and had an even better match at Money in the Bank. I hear the rumor is Owens would have won that second match had Cena's merchandise sales not been so poor at the time. They wanted him to win to make the feud a little bit more even and get his sales back up. That's the rumor I've heard. I don't know the authenticity of it, but it sounds kind of legit.
Did Dave Meltzer write that?
Huh?
Did Dave Meltzer write that?
Dave Meltzer writes a lot of things. He goes either way. But,
yeah, let's not slander Meltzer. Meltzer, he's doing his job. He's providing his family. Just like how Owens is. Owens is trying to provide for his family too. He's a prize fighter.
But you gotta admit, that is something that sounds like a Meltzer article.
Probably. Nonetheless, they, like, to add to Nick's point, they had a whole feud and everything. Rumors were going around everywhere. People were saying that, okay, they're going to have this. This was the plan, and then they nixed it. Oh, man. And then
True.
I think what really was the focal point and really pissed me off was the fact they ended it. But not the right way. They ended it with Cena winning, and then that's it. Clean cut finish, boom. And then they go into SummerSlam, and then that's it. It's just Seth Rollins versus Cena for the double title match. How do you transition into that? That's stupid. And then you put him into the middle card and make him lose the NXT belt.
That's Kevin Dunn for you.
That is probably Kevin Dunn. It's been said and this is another article, probably, from another rumor, that the person that put him down the most probably is Kevin Dunn. Kevin Dunn really putting him down, telling him, oh, that guy can't be here because he doesn't fit the mold, all that shit, whatever, screw him, because he's a buck-toothed, little, brown nose, kiss ass, just going ahead and smooching off. But nonetheless, that's what we have to deal with. But hopefully, something will happen. Hopefully, no doubt, he is one hell of a star. And on top of that, Cena, recently he got injured. They had a whole plan with him going into Royal Rumble and then Mania. That got nixed too. So, it's kind of like, age is getting onto him. But, who's the next star? Obviously Owens. Who else is going to be there? Who else is going to be there to deliver a promo, to sell the merchandise, to cut, to put on a quality match? It's going to be him.
Once he comes back, the face is going to be Rollins.
Yep, and there's a lot of stars that are coming back. It's going to be pretty interesting to see what's going to happen from there. But talking about Rollins, let's transition this into our next category, which is Superstar of the Year. Yeah, obviously we wanted to talk about Superstar of the Year because there's a lot of stuff regarding Superstar of the Year that stands out to us the most. Specifically, the ones that we picked, the one that we all decided on collectively was Seth Rollins.
Well, you gotta admit, this was a hard category to actually pick.
It was.
There are a lot of big stars in all companies.
You name it. There's Lethal. There is, AJ Styles. There's a whole bunch of, a whole list of superstars out there. You can name it. And, if you run down a list, there was a lot of superstars, even in the indies.
I was stuck between 3 people for this category.
I was stuck a little bit farther from this. I was actually going to put Owens as this category too. But,
what about you, Nick? Were you stuck?
Yeah, lots of good candidates. But I will say it probably came down between Lethal and Rollins for me because their years kind of mirrored each other, and Lethal was healthy for the whole year, whereas Rollins kind of fell off, right towards the end, which was unfortunate. But yeah, just looking at the accomplishment alone, the biggest one, probably of the last decade or so, that put Rollins over the edge for me.
True.
But not denying that Jay Lethal had a really breakout year to the point where actually he got WWE's attention, almost as an NXT acquisition. Yet to see where that's going to go this year, but it seems like Lethal's more comfortable at Ring of Honor, which you can't blame him. He's at the top of the company there, top of the card. He gets to be himself, put on really good matches, and that character could last for years, and new talent's going to come out. He'll put them over. I mean, it's just someone you could rely on, and it's really good that he's finally getting his spotlight, after all the crap he went through in TNA, Black Machismo, this and that.
The Ric Flair
Jay Lethal,
impersonator.
he could finally be himself.
True. I mean, on top of that, the whole, and indeed you said, there's a whole mirror, there's a whole, parallel between the two, but they still meet, in some aspects. Seth Rollins was the first person to become United States champion and WWE champion at the same time. Of course, Lethal, obviously he became the TV champ and the ROH World champ. That was unheard of. That was pretty big. Those are two pretty big things. And, I mean, if you look at, like, for example, both of their journeys, they're pretty much mirrored too. I mean, if you think about it, both of them have gone into different routes and they've reached success wherever they've been. But when you see Rollins, like the way that he succeeded, if you think about it, if you count down all the different pay-per-views from the whole year, he's always defended the title and he's always defended it successfully, winning every single pay-per-view.
And there's also another thing that Rollins did that no one else ever did either. Since his debut, he has appeared on every single Raw.
Until his injury.
Up until the injury.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
he was the only person to do that. For almost 2 years he's been on Raw.
It's tragic, too. I mean, if you think about it, like, that happened, leading up to Survivor Series. They're supposed to have this big feud, Reigns versus Rollins. Who knows what that might have done? Maybe they might have gone into, Dean Ambrose getting into the picture and then having a whole thing. But, that's, again, just speculation of what they might have done. So it's next now. What can they do now? But leading up to that, it was pretty interesting. And then once that came, that was a big shock to everybody. Because if you see the video, which we actually posted on our Twitters, if you think about it, if you can follow us, I'll put the links down below. But, as you've seen the video, he landed in a very, very inappropriate position. Like, what happened was, he's saying that he landed on his inside foot while performing,
supposed to be a top rope power bomb technique.
Flip out, yeah. top rope power bomb. And what he did was he landed. Yeah, and he landed on. He slipped actually, and he landed instead of on his heels, he landed straight on the what you call it, the inner part of his foot. That caused his feet. Yeah, that landed his whole the pressure straight off his knee, and then that's it, went straight into collapse. And that was pretty, it's horrific if you see it. And then the way he limped off, that was a serious injury. But I mean, this also begs the question: which other superstar have you seen that's gone through this kind of injury?
And he also finished the match.
True. I mean, which other superstar have you seen that's really had the same kind of injury that's actually in the same region? I mean,
Triple H.
Yeah.
Point that Seth Rollins does a pedigree, and then who else does a pedigree?
He's actually pretty close to maybe what Triple H was in his prime. And then he's got the fortitude to really just take an injury and just battle through it and finish the match. Triple H did that notably many times. When he tore his quad, he finished that match, really went through a Walls of Jericho. Selling that on the announce table probably wasn't fun. Elimination Chamber 2002, he had his throat closed up when RVD landed a 5-star frog splash right on top of his throat because he didn't have enough room to extend himself due to the cage, and he fought that match to the very end. Rollins kind of has that same toughness to him. Going into a little bit of why I picked him as Superstar of the Year, you can't deny the guy had a poster year to really get his name out there. Starting right from January when he was involved in the angle that brought the Authority back to television. He was kind of made as the centerpiece of the Authority stable. He had a really breakout performance in that triple threat with Brock Lesnar and John Cena at last year's Royal Rumble that stole the show.
That was a great match.
Yeah, that put him on the map. His promos were getting a lot better. He had a clear set character, and throughout the year there were like really good side stories of the Authority being with him, the Authority being against him. His own ego, splitting his own group away from him just because he looked out for number one, which was himself. And, that developed a few with Kane, or maybe side hints of a few with Triple H that might, materialize in the future, that were supposedly big plans, had Rollins not got injured.
Big plan, basically.
Yeah, then go into his biggest accomplishment, cashing in the freaking Money in the Bank during the main event of WrestleMania, when you've got arguably the biggest amount of eyes on the product during the biggest moment of the year, the biggest match. He goes and does that. There's nothing that's going to top that. And when you think of Seth Rollins, that's the moment you're going to think of, because that's just how it is. And then, kind of like Hulk Hogan through 1997, he was the top heel champion with the stable, backing him up, taking down challenger after challenger, having a really nice build-up. He beat guys like John Cena, he beat Demon Kane, you name it. He defended against Neville and beat him. There's Sting in there, too. Lots of guys. And he was having a really breakthrough year, and was really building up a really impressive title reign that seemed like it was going to end at Survivor Series, which I wouldn't have agreed with. I would have had Rollins champion right up until WrestleMania 32. He could still feud with Reigns briefly for Survivor Series. They probably would have screwed him over at the end of Survivor Series anyway. You could have had this whole thing carried to WrestleMania 32, throw Ambrose in there. Boom, Shield main event. That's how it happens, but
which is everyone's dream WrestleMania main event.
Yeah, injuries could happen. Injuries do happen, and unfortunately, it happened.
Poor booking also happens.
Yep.
It happened to the best guy in wrestling right now. So, WWE took a big hit to WWE because they had to push other stars who were kind of left out at the moment. It's made for a little bit of awkward television, trying to fill the void that Rollins left. You could tell they were trying to push Sheamus as that kind of guy, which wasn't working. They tried doing plenty of different things, but, when it comes down to it, you could tell how desperate people become when the thing that they count on the most is not there. And that's what happened when Rollins was injured. And the fact that WWE went into such a creative downspin should tell you just how valuable Rollins is to this roster. And I think when he comes back, he's already got a big angle or a big storyline set up, with the return, already pretty much guaranteed. Not sure when just yet, but it's going to be a big moment, and fans are naturally just going to want to cheer for him. So it'll be interesting to see if he goes face or heel. I think
even if he's a heel, he'll still get a face reaction no matter what.
Yeah, he reminds me of Edge, and kind of how he's the bad guy you kind of love to cheer for because he's just so good at being a bad guy. But I think if he gets a shot at being a top babyface, that could work out really well for him too. WWE officials were counting on it happening. Not sure just when yet, but the fact that the idea was there makes you believe that he can pull it off. And I'm eager to see what happens when he comes back. But barring the injury, Rollins pretty much had 2015 Superstar of the Year already down pat when he cashed in, and the great title reign only cemented that further.
There's also two other names that, because you mentioned heel getting a face reaction, Bray Wyatt. Actually, three. Bray Wyatt, Brock Lesnar, and the unmentionable name, CM Punk. All three of them top heels, and they all get face reactions.
And they'll
I see.
ended up turning face.
Yep. And then you see this whole shift, this whole paradigm shift where I think whenever they see that, whenever like the bookers see that, they kind of get freaked out because they're thinking, oh shoot, like how is this gonna affect us? And they kind of think, they kind of panic, like, oh my gosh, so what do we do? And like you saw in the situations with Kevin Owens and Cena, there was always something going on. And when someone gets high enough, like if someone like Kevin Owens gets a bigger reaction than Cena every single pay-per-view, every single night, that's a problem. So let's just go ahead and put him down. So that kind of thing just happens right there. But, with Rollins, it was already clear-cut and made, But Rich, I mean, what would you say, what would you say about the similarities, and the differences that would be there?
I just think Seth Rollins is just going to be himself, no matter what.
When he returns?
Throw him in any feud, throw him with any other superstars, he'll be himself, put on a 6-star match.
I mean, yeah, it's true. He probably, I mean, if you ever see, like, in the stuff in the indies, he put on 5-star matches. Even now, like, all the matches that he had, big, with big names, John Cena, Sting, Brock Lesnar. He's always had very good matches, and people have always enjoyed it. But
name a bad match that he was in.
You really can't. You really can't. I mean, he put Kane over. Kane, in 2015 was getting a shot at the WWE title. That was kind of like, it was kind of repetitive. Like, they were kind of desperate, like, who can we have to face, the champion? Let me think. Brock's not here because he's part-time. Oh, Cena can't do it because he's doing a movie. Well, who do we call? And they're like, oh, let's just, fuck it. Let's just call Kane. And I was kind of like, okay, so how can you do that? But he did a pretty good job of putting him over and everything, the way that, even until that time, like, it's pretty crazy to see that. But
what's the next category, Sal?
I mean, yeah, I was just gonna say another thing. We actually were looking for was a Shield, reuniting. That's possibly in the future too. But moving on to that, NXT. If you've seen the progress that they've had from the beginning till now, it's been astronomical. They've gone leaps and bounds. The way that they've gone up, it's beyond me. I mean, if you think about all the specials that they've had recently, from UK to Brooklyn to the different takeovers that they had, Fatal 4-Way, the rival pay-per-views, all that other stuff, and it's been pretty big for them. And they've actually gone to they've grown to an astronomical rate where they're not now a developmental territory. They're actually their own brand, kind of like an independent, but still WWE and still tied with them. For us, we all had the same unanimous. Well, actually, we had different picks.
It was two had one, and one had the other.
Yep. So we kind of looked at what, based on their performance, based on how they were pushed, based on how they were, brought up, and how they performed basically in those certain situations. But me and Nick personally, we chose. Well, actually, me and Rich, we actually picked the same pick. We picked Finn Balor. Rich, I'll pass it on to you. Why do you think that Finn Balor is the superstar of the year?
For an NXT superstar?
Yes.
I picked him because since his debut, everyone knew that he was going to sign with them, but everyone thought they were going to mess up his character. They were completely wrong. Since he came out defending Hideo Itami against the Ascension, he always basically knew how to draw the crowd's attention, whether it's his outfits that he wears for the NXT TakeOver events or just his charisma in the ring. His entrance puts any entrance to shame, basically. His entrances are amazing. His moveset is on point. It's the best I've seen. And his finisher is just amazing. I loved him since he was in Japan, basically, as Prince Devitt.
I mean, yeah, from the dojo years till now, it's pretty.
And he also trained Becky Lynch.
True, that's interesting too. I mean, the way that he's captivated wherever he's been, they dubbed him the chameleon of of wrestling because wherever he's gone, he's been able to adapt and conquer. He went to Japan, he conquered. He went to UK, he conquered, and now he's their favorite now. But now he's on the American landscape, the American view, and he's gotten their trust for sure. Because if every single takeover special you go to or any other NXT event, you're always gonna see a kid with a Finn Balor mask and face paint because it attracts them. It's kind of like the enigma that it brought, like kind of like Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy was kind of that character. Kids can cling on to him, but he was entertaining in the ring. He had all these high flying aerial offense and everything, and that made him stand out. And people really clashed onto it, and they said, it's cool, that's hip, that's entertaining to see.
You can actually argue him to be a superstar of the year because he's only lost one match in 2015.
True. I mean, they've actually gone ahead and had a lot of rumors about bringing him up. We had that recent interview with Dean Ambrose, and they heard that they're saying that he's probably coming up in September, which didn't happen. But I mean, what really stands out with him is the fact that he's so loyal to NXT. Because if
he doesn't want to leave.
He doesn't want to. He's always said, I always love this brand, and he's always preached about NXT being the best brand ever, and that's what it is now. And he's so adamant on keeping it separate from the main roster because he says that this is ours, this is what we're doing, this is what we're about, and that's what I think.
NXT.
We are NXT, and he's preaching that. And that's what's I think really good. He's really loyal, he's really respectful with it, and he's able to go leaps and bounds with it. And I think he should stay in NXT, but at the same time, you want to see him move forward and do something big. But
as an NXT fan, everyone probably wanted to see him answer the Open Challenge, the U.S. Open Challenge, instead of Del Rio that night.
True. I mean, there was always a rumor that which NXT star was going to come up, and the first name that came up was right there, Finn Balor. After that, it was probably Tyler Breeze. It was probably after that Baron Corbin, and also a bunch of other names. But the first name that popped up, Finn Balor, for sure, because he was a top star. They thought, why not? Let's just have him do that. But I mean, you can understand the reasons too, because they don't want him to be the top. They don't want him to fight Cena again, have that repetitive effect like Owens did, where he beat him or he faced him on the first night, and losing effort, loss, that would kind of bring his momentum down. So I understand that.
There were also rumors that he was going to be a teammate for the Brothers of Destruction versus the Wyatts.
And you can understand too that you can understand that too. I mean, his appearance and everything. The demon, supposedly the character that he has. It's it's pretty interesting to see where that goes.
The demon with the devil and Undertaker. That would have been imperfect.
That would have it's perfect right there. Then that would have gone and clicked perfectly. But
actually,
yeah,
Kane and Balor would both be demons. But yeah, it would have fit.
It would have definitely. It would have made some kind of some kind of powerhouse right there.
Still baffles me that it wasn't a traditional Survivor Series tag.
Yeah, that was surprising right there. Why would they just have the Brothers of Destruction face two members of the Wyatts? That was kind of shocking. It's kind of like, wow, why not? Why wouldn't you have that? But at the same time, you can understand the reasons because it was all centered around Taker. So you can't blame him. But that
Nick,
goes on
who
to
is
you,
your
Nick.
pick for NXT star?
Yeah, I'm not gonna deny any of what you guys just said because Balor is a really great gimmick character. Everyone pretty much knew this from when he was Prince Devitt. There was a lot of questions of how he would fare in the WWE environment, and they stuck to a character that took elements of his previous personalities and took on something new with it. And a lot of the input has really been himself, just coming up with his own designs, his own looks. He changes it up. There's no denying his wrestling talent is there. He's just an all-around complete package, and he's been a really big reason why NXT has been so, successful, branching out of its developmental territory, labeling, turning into like a brand of itself. It's kind of funny how NXT is kind of like the hottest independent wrestling promotion. It's WWE's answer to ROH, and they're not shy about that. But going into who I picked, going for a more, textbook reason of why NXT was so successful right away, and with the hot shot this guy got, this push, I would go with Kevin Owens, mainly because we really got to see what his character was all about. His commentary was entertaining. He would go out for some main events and just commentate. It was downright hilarious the way he would bully around WWE officials and announcers for no reason. He would throw around people. He had the feud with Sami Zayn, that already started off the year really well. There was a lot of positives to that, and being on the NXT platform only helped him further when he actually won the title, not by pinfall, but by referee stoppage. That's downright hardcore. And then he only took that title and made it even better. And at the time he was champion, that's when he went onto the main roster and really started carrying around the NXT title, making NXT, something that's not a little cult culture, a little cult following. It's something that could be advertised on the main roster, and that brought about the influx of other people who came up from NXT. This guy was, someone who you could count on for really good matches, like we said before, and, for the first half of the year, he got a monster push, and having the NXT platform really cemented, that status for him. It gave him the outlet to really be himself, because the Kevin Owens character is really heel Kevin Steen, on the WWE, ways of thinking, but it works so well because he's really good at what he does, and he cut really good promos. I mean, there's no way around it, and for those reasons, I would say, as great as a year Balor had, the fact that he doesn't want to leave NXT should really say something, but we all know he's going to get his shot on the main roster sooner or later. Owens is already there, and I think his time in NXT, albeit a short one, but a really notable one, you can't argue that he could also be considered NXT Superstar of the Year.
Definitely, and that's a testament to him. I mean, he actually exemplified what NXT was, But for the reasons that we, stated before, with the rivalry that he had with Owens, with Cena coming in, and all the other accomplishments, winning the IC title in the same year that he won the US title. The NXT title.
Yep.
It's pretty big. It's a pretty big deal to come off and then that early to come into WWE main roster and make that much. It's pretty interesting to see what's ahead.
Well, he also did fight for the United States Championship. He was drawn into the top contendership for the World Heavyweight Championship. If you remember that Raw main event, that Fatal 4-Way, he was a part of that.
So, yeah, before Survivor Series.
Also, he was part of the tournament, I believe, also. And he wasn't part of the King of the Ring, was he part of the King of the Ring?
I don't believe so.
I don't think he was part of that, but I don't think anyone's crying about that.
No, I doubt that, but
there was a King of the Ring tournament?
There was, yeah.
I forgot all about it. It was that bad.
Yeah, that was because Neville didn't win. As opposed to, it was like a whole uproar about that. I was like, damn. So you guys basically just made him an underdog that's always gonna lose. But nonetheless, branching off NXT, there's another category that we're actually gonna go into. There's been this revolution, the Divas revolution specifically. We've talked about the impact women have had in sports entertainment and all areas of sports. Ronda Rousey, obviously, a big athlete. The whole year she's always done something, and there's always been something big. Holly Holm recently, beating Ronda Rousey, getting off her, publicity off of that. But it's bull crap. But nonetheless, there's a whole list. This whole year really exemplified what women's wrestling was. Not just specifically WWE. You could look elsewhere too. You could look at probably, I hate to say this, TNA with Awesome Kong, seeing what she's done over there and everything. You could see also in NJPW with Doc Gallows' wife and all the other stuff, the NWA having a stuff. Yep, Lucha definitely. You've seen something where there was intergender competition, but something arose out of that where you saw people like Ivelisse, people like
Candice
Who
LeRae.
else? Sexy Star.
Sexy Star.
Yep, whole bunch. You could name a whole list, and they were, they performed very well, and they showed that okay, we can perform just as well, if not better.
And then you have the biggest girl who fights men, Candice LeRae.
Definitely. I mean, that's pretty. To say that, to have, WWE is really, really shy on that. They really don't like that. They don't like it when women and men just get into that. I mean, especially now with their image, you really can't promote that. It's kind of a no-no in today's society. But I mean, it's a testament. It's metaphorically, WWE has actually proven that the women are good enough, if not better, to step in the ring and perform well. I mean, now if you've seen the improvement that they've had, they don't have no more of those 5-minute matches. Now they have 15, 20-minute matches, and they're actually hosting more of the NXT stars. But like Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch, Charlotte. But there's a whole list of that. Specifically, we want to talk about Diva of the Year. So in our minds,
Sal, who was your pick?
I'd say my pick, just to start off the bat, it'll probably be Charlotte. Charlotte of Charlotte Flair. Because, if you've seen her journey, it's pretty inspirational, because she ended up starting wrestling. Basically, she was asked, if you've seen, Ric Flair's recent podcast, he talked about Charlotte's journey and everything, about how she started out in WWE. Basically, she had no interest in it until Reed Flair's unfortunate death. So that kind of, pushed her to say, okay, he couldn't do this. This was his dream. Let me fulfill that for him. And John Laurinaitis basically came up to her at the 2008 the Hall of Fame when Flair was getting inducted, and he asked her. He said, "Oh, why don't you in WWE?" And she's like, "Oh, I don't know, whatever. Maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't." And then later on, you already know the story. Basically, Reed Flair died, very tragic, early, very very early, in his age, and he died that sudden, And it's very tragic to hear that, but to see that, his sister is fulfilling this dream for her, it speaks bounds, And I say that, why? Because, if you see her right now, she's probably one of the most charismatic divas right now. With her whole, the performance that she has, the way that she's so flexible, the way that she can perform, she can really probably outperform any diva in the roster right now. Hell, even, the lower tier men right now, she puts on one hell of a match, and I see her going, she has a lot of potential to be something big, just like how Flair was back in the day. But yeah, that's my pick. I know you and Nick, Rich and Nick, both of you have the same pick, don't you guys, for the Diva of the Year?
Yep. Our pick for Diva of the Year. Who else? The boss, Sasha Banks.
You care to elaborate on that?
She's the boss. She had one hell of a year in NXT. She's getting misused on the main roster right now. But if you watch every week, you hear the crowd chanting, "We want Sasha."
And Sasha has Ratchet also. But, it's pretty... She's
not Ratchet.
She is not. She's pretty... she can perform really well. She's very, very attractive.
She's the boss.
She is the boss. I agree. What about you, Nick? What would you say?
Yeah, when I started PWO last year and I started watching, all of the shows and watching NXT, Sasha Banks' character really stuck out in a positive way because her theme music is really catchy, it's really flashy, she got this unique attire, she's got the shades, she's got the little thing on her fist that spelled out the word legit and boss and this and that. It was really something different, and, the character you could really buy, because it was an extension of herself, because you really believed that she was this egotistical, ratchet person, but then when you perfect the character, you kind of make people forget how good you are in the ring, and she got the chance to prove that in spades, and as the year progressed, her name only became more synonymous with Match of the Year candidates, and a lot of her good work, I'm not going to knock the whole Divas Revolution, but it was a clear misuse of all the NXT talent, they were just basically mooching off of what NXT had built with its women division at the time when they were actually, getting the spotlight and able to put on 15, 20-minute matches that actually were, really out of the box and had people, clamoring over all of this stuff going on, innovative spots, things you never really seen before, technical wrestling, high-flying maneuvers, suicide dives. Banks was doing this all, and her breakout performances, that four-way with, what they call them the Four Horsewomen now, I think that started the trend of, people starting to look at NXT's women's division as something magic, and it only further on, when, what I will call, one of my favorite matches of the year, Banks and Bailey, NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. I mean, there's no denying what went on in that ring and that building and that environment. That put Banks on the map. That's the match people would look at when you think of her. And despite of everything, that's gone on since then, a call up to the main roster was pretty much destined to happen, but we just wish it got on a little bit more, a little bit more memorably than it has worked out. The Team Bad, the whole Team Bad thing, it kind of works, but just the way that it's being used, it's not using Banks for what she could really do.
To be honest, I think she's more of like a singles competitor. I can't picture her in a group unless it's the Four Horsewomen.
Yeah, she is. And I'll say this, right off the top of your head, you could think of her really good matches in NXT, but I challenge you, can you think of a really good match on the main roster that Sasha Banks has been a part of? Any one match, can you name one?
One, against Paige.
Just one, and she
I
must
can't
have
tell
had
you
about...
when, but it was a good match. It caught my eye.
She must have had about 11 or 12 of these main roster matches. It wasn't her, it was just the way she was being booked. And it goes back to the book.
Here's an even better
NXT.
question, better quiz. Name a bad match she had in NXT. You can't.
One more time?
Name one of the bad matches she had in NXT.
I can't name one.
Exactly.
Every single match she had, she brought something different, and any of those four, quote unquote horsewomen never had a bad match against one another, and it's just because they trained together, they did all this together, they're really close friends.
I'm not sure. I might be wrong, but I think they all came in together also.
Probably. I mean, I'm not
around the same time at most.
Yeah. And that just goes to show, Banks is, well, let's hope 2016 holds bigger things, because she can't go back down to NXT. As great as it was for her down there, it's only the main roster from her going forward, but we don't think Team Bad is going to last too much longer, maybe about a few more months at best.
I don't think any of the Diva Revolution groups are going to last longer, because PCB is already gone. Bella is not there.
Well, that's why they call it the whole unity thing, because, because they've been the only team that's still around, but it's not necessarily a good thing.
Well, with that being said, our next category is Gimmick of the Year. Only two of us picked for this. Nick, who was your selection for Gimmick of the Year?
Yeah, going back to what made them work so much as a tag team, the New Day kind of developed their own little gimmick at the same time, because now when you think of them, you think of trombones, rainbows, unicorns, and booty. I mean, what's better than that? They've developed their own image, their own likeness that you could sell and put on a t-shirt. They come out, not every promo is on the mark, but for a good majority of them, they're on there. And there's no denying, what they can do inside of the ring and outside of the ring. But now that they have their own image and look, there's no denying, New Day has really come far as a team to the fact that they could pull off their own gimmick, and the idea that it's their act is all about them like being themselves, where they just don't care anymore, where they're going out and saying all these outrageous things. But that's kind of what makes the New Day act so great, that they kind of have this whole carelessness about them, but they're such really good heels that the gimmick, the act, is so brilliant, and it works in many different ways.
That's true.
That's true. I mean, there's another thing. There's I'm surprised they haven't muted them. Because a lot of muting happens when someone, when some of the wrestlers they say something out of line. I mean, with that, I'm surprised no one has ever muted them or anything. It's shocking, to see that.
We could all name one person that happened to so many times.
I know. It's you could really say that's it's happened to a lot of people, but you could name a list.
It happened to Punk more than anyone else.
That's a fact. Because he was so radical. But the thing with the New Day is that they're not radical. They're really out of the ordinary.
They're comedians when they're on the mic.
They make a fool out of themselves, but they make it entertaining, and they're actually believable in that matter.
I'm actually happy though that they let Kofi speak his mind. Now,
True.
He's not just that guy at the Royal Rumble.
He's not that acrobatic, guy that just, is high flyer and just is a mid-card guy. Now he's actually something, pretty big. I say as far as, he's probably as big as one of the, upper card guys now. But
yeah,
even you could see that. But, like I was saying before, with gimmicks, I mean, I have, personally, I said that there's no gimmicks anymore. I mean, we talked about this in the previous podcast, gimmicks are pretty much non-existent now. It's pretty much now the characters, which is, the difference between gimmick and a character. Gimmick is something that you're basically portraying. Character is more of something that you are. So, it's kind of like there's not really any gimmick anymore. It's more of a extension of your character, just an extension of who you are. So if you see most of the characters now, you see Adam Rose. Where has he gone? It's totally knocked out and flushed down the toilet now.
He's now in a new group called the Social Outcasts.
Yeah, he's part of a new stable.
I mean, yeah, that's recent, right? But if you see, I mean, by the way, that's pretty creative, having them all four and having them involved. It's good for them, but we'll see from there. But to see, like gimmick die out like that, it's kind of depressing because you see something that it's bad for them, but it's also bad for us as a viewer because we're saying, okay, we wasted our time, which could have been used towards something else. But, and we're kind of getting angry at that, So
that's true.
That's true. I mean, if you see gimmicks right now, I probably wouldn't say any gimmicks are pretty good. I mean, you see any gimmicks come and go. But, you don't ever see them coming every year, unless they're bringing up something really new or something, that's out of the ordinary.
Like the worst gimmick they could have had was the original one they wanted for Adrian Neville, the Mighty Mouse.
True. They what was that? That was kind of like a superhero thing, right?
Yeah. I'm happy they squashed that gimmick right when he got to the main roster, though. Because I like Neville how he is now.
True.
He still got elements of superhero-esque-ness to him. He kind of had that whole comic book feud with Stardust.
But that was genius, though. That was amazing.
Yeah, it was good use, but I'm not going to deny that his character kind of has superhero elements to it. But I am happy they did avoid that whole Mighty Mouse thing, because we got to concentrate on Neville being Neville, which is a really insane aerial performer. There's no way around it, and, they...
But if you think about it, about Neville, because I remember me and you a few years ago, Nick, we watched a few DVDs of Neville before he became a WWE superstar as Pac. His moves and his character are basically the same.
Yeah.
True. But I mean, I think their view is that, okay, how can we build some substance over people? Because they don't just want to have people that can perform well. They want to have people that they can build a story around. But like with Neville, how can you really build a story around him? I mean, it's very hard to, because WWE has that challenge, probably thinking, okay, how can we make a story out of this guy? He's just a regular guy. He can high fly, but we already have like 50 other people that can do that. So
But no one's as athletic as Neville.
true.
No one
And
else could pull off.
true.
NXT did it. They
True.
made him a top guy. He was the champion.
But if you see him now,
heel, but yeah,
Yeah.
he was a good character.
yeah. But if you see him then, he kind of was this generic character where he was just, he didn't give him any, anything fancy. He was just plain out, just basic, right to us, just how he was. But now, they kind of give him like a little flavor, saying, okay, here you go, let's see how it rolls. And that kind
And
of
it's been working.
it's in a way, but it's we have to see what goes on later on. Will he win a belt? Will something happen? I mean, you've seen over the past year where he's gone
I see him
ahead.
getting a mid-card belt.
There's definitely some kind of future for no problem. But will he stay in the mid card? Will he move up? That's the question. We're very uncertain about for now. But hopefully later on it'll get clearer and clearer. But yeah, anyway, now we've talked about gimmicks. Rich, have you spoken about a gimmick?
Well, my gimmick is basically our pick for Superstar of the Year, Seth Rollins. The reason why he's just the poster boy for the Authority. He was the golden boy. And I like how the Authority basically made him who he is today. There's no specific reason behind it. I just think that they made it perfect for him.
True. I mean, with Seth Rollins, and if you see all the different stars, any of the heels, they're always arrogant, self-centered, egotistical. You can name it. You can name the qualities. But WWE has a good way of packaging the different characters, yet still drawing a connection to that. Like you see with like with Owens and everything, he's pretty much absorbed into that, but he has his own style of expressing it. Whereas Rollins, he's kind of like the opportunistic weasel that cheats his way into winning. And that's pretty interesting. That's pretty it draws different parallels into how that character goes. But to an extent, I mean, yeah, that's sort of a pretty interesting gimmick there for the year. Because you really haven't seen that anywhere else or any other superstar there.
That's true. So what's the next category on the list?
Next category that we have is Oh My God Moment of the Year, which there have been a lot over this past year, and many different promotions, many different things have happened.
Do you mind if I start this one off?
Go right ahead. Feel free.
All right. Well, I'm sorry, guys. I'm changing my pick. My original pick was Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania, judo flipping Triple H, and putting Stephanie in a standing armbar. My new pick, because I thought about it, the All Night Express returning to Ring of Honor at their show All-Star Extravaganza. I picked that because it's been years. It's been 3 years exactly since they competed in a Ring of Honor match together. For anyone who doesn't watch Ring of Honor, the All Night Express is Kenny King and Rhett Titus. They never technically lost their tag team titles by pinfall, submission. They just got rid of it. 3 years later, the Briscoes challenge any team. Out of nowhere, the All Night Express shows up. Now they're permanently back in the title hunt for the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championship. They'll be fighting War Machine later on this month. I would love to see All Night Express win it back because they're an amazing team, and I wish them all the best. Nick, your pick? Or would you like to comment on my pick?
Yeah, I'll do a little both of actually. I'll do a little bit of both. I'm not going to deny the initial moment of ANX coming back was a newsworthy moment, mainly for the reason Kenny King had actually stood out as one of TNA's better talents that they let get away, and he knew Ring of Honor was a place he could come back to with immediate open arms, and it's kind of miraculous that they managed to get a change out of getting Rhett Titus back in the fold, just out of nowhere like that. The only thing that baffles me about that is there was no explanation of where they were during the time that they gone. They kind of just reappeared and were like, "Oh yeah, guys, we're back." There's kind of a confusion about that, and we haven't really learned who ANX really is. We haven't seen any hype videos, there haven't been any interview segments. There's kind of just like, yeah, we're back, and we can wrestle, and we're a good tag team. But we don't really know much about the team. For any new fans of ROH who might not have been around at the time ANX was last, active, these are just two random guys who are really friendly and can team together, and, just wish there was more character development on the ANX side of things. Not denying that they're a good tag team, they really are.
You basically just have to know their history before they left.
I'd like to see a reign come out of it, sure, but I feel like a little character development is kind of due, so we could kind of know who they are as a team, and if we could just get a little explanation of where they've been since the time that they've been gone, that would be good too. At least for Rhett Titus' sake, because it's like the guy was literally nowhere while
he was
Kenny King was in TNA.
Rhett Titus was in Ring of Honor. He was just under a different character.
Yeah, but as far as the Rhett Titus character, I'd like a little explanation on that. How does a guy leave a job? If you left somewhere you worked for 3 years and then you just decided to show up again,
hey, I'm back, guys. Ready to work.
Would you be welcomed back with open arms? I mean, I'm just trying to look at it from a realistic perspective. I'm not really seeing it, but again, at the moment itself, ANX being back can be a good thing for ROH's tag team division. It's one of their...
Especially the fact that they just lost the Kingdom.
Well, half of the Kingdom.
Yeah. Well, I consider Michael Bennett the main part. He was the leader.
I'd say Adam Cole's the leader, just based on the matches he's put on and the promo segments. He's really become a name ROH could rely on. But I think good things are in Bennett's future. As far as the decision to go to TNA, I'm not quite sure about that. But
anyone's decision to go to TNA is always questionable.
It's probably money.
Their handling of the characters so far has been interesting. I'm interested to see where it goes. Just wish she hadn't worn those damn tennis shoes with that suit. But I like the Miracle character, and it really fits true to what he is. And then he's got Maria by his side, so it's sticking true to everything that kind of made the Kingdom work, just as his own character.
I see them pulling in Taven, though.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they'll be back soon. But transitioning this to my pick of OMG Moment of the Year, we know Brock Lesnar destroying things is a very entertaining thing to watch. He's done it to an Office. He's done it to many different things. But above all else, he helped make post-WrestleMania of Raw another water cooler subject when he basically just destroyed the ringside area. He flipped the announce table onto Booker T and JBL. He took out ringside officials. He did lots of other things, and he F5'd the cameraman, and he F5'd Michael Cole. It was a brilliant way to write him off the television for the time being. I'm not denying that they handled it really well, but it was it's doing what Roman Reigns did at the end of TLC, where he kind of just kept assaulting Triple H, and was like, damn, how far is he gonna go? they did this first with Brock Lesnar, and they basically just took what worked with Lesnar and took it to Reigns, and actually that worked out for him too. But Lesnar's the original destroyer, and the whole thing was perfectly booked down to the T. You have a guy irate as can be, with the his championship being taken away. He wasn't even pinned for it, and he wants his rematch. He initially gets the rematch, but the guy he's facing just backs out of it, and he just goes ballistic. If you have the F5 Michael Cole to prove a point, that can only mean good things. But it really made post WrestleMania Raw another awesome show and had people talking, oh crap, did you see this, and that, just for the OMG factor of it, because we've seen him destroy cars and we've seen him destroy corporate offices, but there's something, organic about watching Lesnar just pretty much destroy the ringside area. He knocked out the commentary team.
Specifically,
no commentary. There was.
I mean, specifically, he took out Michael Cole, and that was unexpected.
Yeah, he took out the entire team. There was no commentary during the segment, which made everything all more of the focus on Lesnar just destroying things. And then you had Stephanie coming out, begging him not to F5 the cameraman. And he F5'd the cameraman, so then she just suspended him indefinitely.
Which is basically his vacation time.
Yeah, and they handled that really well. I just wish that the follow-up with the feud with Rollins was good, but it still baffles me that Lesnar actually never had a fair rematch.
He never had a rematch, technically.
He hasn't, and he's pushing for having a match at WrestleMania, which is and that was kind of unexpected too. I mean, when you talk about like unexpected moments, unscripted, should I say? Like they were originally supposed to have him like raise hell. Michael Cole wasn't in there to take him out and F5 him on camera. Neither was probably, if you look on recently on Raw, I'm probably spoiling it, but there was a segment with Paul Heyman saying something to Mr. McMahon, and they kind of like Mr. McMahon kind of looked at him on live TV like, the fuck you talking about? And then they kind of cut the commercial and said, oh shit, like how can we cover this? And then they had another segment, okay fine, this whatever, and then they sorted it out. But that was something too.
All right, Sal, your pick.
But yeah, another one pick for the oh my god moment, I would say probably the one that stood out to me the most was Battleground of 2015. Fatal 4-Way match for the WWE title. Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns, and Randy Orton for the WWE title. What do you see? The three get together, triple power bomb, Randy Orton straight through the table. And then the whole crowd reaction. It was crazy.
Was that at Raw?
It wasn't at Battleground, though.
Payback, my bad.
Payback, yeah.
Payback, right.
Battleground was when Demon came back, and Lesnar actually had his rematch, but he F5'd Rollins, and then the lights went out, and then Kane came out and attacked him. So
right. So that was a little bit after then. That was because they're pretty much the same graphics and shit. So I was like, whatever. And
two pay-per-views no one cares about.
Yep, 2 pay-per-views that are just like Fastlane, which they're trying to build up supposedly as one of the big pay-per-views, but we'll see from that. But besides the fact, that was an oh my god moment because you saw the Shield members reunite for that 1 second. And that was magic right there. Everybody was on their feet saying, oh shit, the Shield's back, something's going on. And then 5 minutes later you see them turning back, smiling, and then slowly, bam, they just get into a fight. And then there's like a whole thing. It was a humorous moment, but at the same time it was kind of, oh holy shit, they're reuniting. And then, oh no, they're not. Alright, fine, whatever, that's cool. But it was really interesting to see that. What do you guys say about that? The Shield reuniting for 5 seconds out of the whole year.
It was fun.
It was awesome. It was
fun. Yeah, it was something to worth seeing, But taking aside the oh my god moments, we also got to go into disappointments. So specifically the disappointment of the year. I'll start off. I'll just say it right off. The disappointment of the year. We talk about a lot of injuries that happened throughout the whole year, and this is probably one of the only years that a lot of people have gotten injured. but specifically the one that stood out to me the most, that was probably the first person that got injured, Daniel Bryan. When he got injured, that I think was in March or after WrestleMania during a tour, that really stuck out to me and said. So basically, he lost last year. He lost the belt basically by relinquishing it and then doing it one more time with the IC belt. That was kind of like, oh man, come on, that just ruined all the plans. They were supposed to have this feud with him and Cena for the belts and all this, and then poof, just went away.
Well, my whole thing, you can't really consider injuries as a disappointment because that's something no one can really control. So I kind of disagree with your pick, but it's your pick, so we can't really argue it. That's your reasoning behind it.
True. I mean, the injuries are unexpected, but
if you want to go that, then you could also throw Rollins' injury in there. You could throw Cesaro's injury in there. Tyson Kidd's injury.
Yeah, Sting, Tyson Kidd. You can throw
Sting's you kind of predicted because he's old.
But I mean,
so one bad move and then boom.
But I mean, it was unrehearsed. It was a totally new move that wasn't that wasn't exposed to him before. He didn't ever have that kind of move in TNA. He didn't ever have that kind of bump in all the other venues that he was in.
Same thing with Kidd. He's not used to getting the muscle buster.
True. I mean, you could say that about anybody, but Bryan, I mean, it was pretty. It was shocking because of the fact that he had a history of the injuries and everything, and there's been a threat to his career. That this injury, he might be one injury away from ending his career. And supposedly,
which I think his career is done.
They're supposedly saying that it might be done, but I'm also hearing that he might have been released, which was a bluff because they confirmed that and said no, that's not true. But another rumor that I'm hearing,
Dave Meltzer.
I'm probably not Dave Meltzer, but someone in that area. They're saying that he might show up for Royal Rumble, but we'll have to see from there. But I mean, that goes on to the next pick, or if you guys want to elaborate on that, go ahead.
It's a little bit of a touchy subject for WWE because Daniel Bryan, technically he's healthy, he's ready to compete. They just won't let him because they fear another concussion, and if that happens, because the company is in a current lawsuit by former talent over concussions, it'll really be bad on their public image, which they, look really highly on for all their sponsorships and everything like that. So, it's a sucky situation for Bryan because if you know the guy and his character, and the person, he just wants to compete, make fans happy, and when you're depriving fans of arguably the most popular guy in wrestling, they're going to, resent that a little bit. And there was a portion of that in 2015 where we had him back and he won the IC title and great, he's back now, we could continue this, and then he was injured again, not even long after that, and it was just like, crap, we're back to the same old thing again. And well, going off the article I read, Inquisitor posted something not too long ago about this, that they had seen that someone in WWE HR had filed a release paper for Daniel Bryan, but for a week after the date where all the other releases are usually announced. So that person was confused as to why his was pushed a week later. But supposedly the paperwork is there. I don't know if they're letting him free to pursue other things, or it could just be something to get the wrestling media talking, to kind of just surprise everyone when Bryan would make his Rumble return. But it seems like WWE is very hesitant to put him back, at least in the ring. But it's kind of surprising that they haven't put him on TV, like, as a manager or some kind of, like...
True. I mean, they haven't put him in any kind of situation. He recently had a tour, and, that they have trust in him, but to what extent? So that's kind of shocking, but it's very unknown to see what's going to happen. Very uncertain. But, yeah. I mean, what about you guys? What are your, disappointments of the year? What stood out to you as some of the most disappointing points of the year?
Do you want me to go, or do you want to go, Nick?
I'll go next.
Well, how about this? I got an idea. How about this? Nick, you tell us what your disappointment was, and Rich, you tell us what your disappointment was, and we'll just go ahead and try to tie them in, if they do tie in some way.
Okay. Nick?
All right. I don't think they'll tie in, but all right.
They might. You never know.
Mine
We'll
is
find a way.
the Damien Sandow character and how far along the card he fell off.
My pick for disappointment, the misuse of Dolph Ziggler.
Yeah, so those two have some kind of they have a big connection. Basically, there's a what you call it, a disconnect with the usage of the talent that they have, and this has led to a lot of disappointment with the people, that no pun intended, of the actual wrestlers. I mean, if you look at all the releases that certain wrestlers have acquired, C.J. Parker. You look at who else? You look at Sami Callihan, who was
Solomon Crow.
Solomon Crow and NXT. He asked for a release. They both asked for the release, and they got it. They left, and they said, "All right, fine, we're out on our way." And they went on to.
And the only one you hear about is Sami Callihan.
True, and he's doing all kinds of interviews. But
supposedly, C.J. Parker is found a little bit of success in NJPW, New Japan.
Didn't he also sign with GFW?
I think, yeah, because most of the wrestlers that are signed to NJPW are actually co-signed with with the GFW. I mean, they can perform, they're able to because they have a partnership there. But yeah, I mean, that draws to the point. I mean, why do why pick those two as the disappointments?
Well, I picked Sandow. I mean, when he was Mizdow, at the beginning, the first half of the year, he had monster reactions. He was really good at playing the impersonation character. He had it down pat. The Miz was entertaining with this. They were doing this big build-up where Mizdow was finally going to turn on Miz, and it happened at under the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, and they never quite followed up on that. And then they had Damien Sandow come out as himself, and then he was
Macho Mizdow.
Macho Mizdow and Axelmania, and that came around the time Hulk Hogan was in hot water over the N-word. I don't know if it was that situation that kind of took him off TV for the meantime, but the fact that they brought him out as Damien Sandow, like the original character, took him off TV for the meantime, but the fact that they brought him out as Damien Sandow, like the original character, it's a little bit baffling of why.
I'm actually surprised he's not in the Social Outcasts.
Yeah, that's kind of surprising to see that how they're not using him when he wasn't even the one,
I don't think they wanted to turn him heel, so I think they just wanted. I would have loved the Damien Sandow character, the intellectual savior of the masses character, but just as a baby face for him, Mm-hmm. He can get over. He's had some really good matches. I'm just confused of why they had such a weird way of dropping his relevance so quickly when the first half of the year he got one of the biggest reactions. So I'm just wondering, how did he manage to drop the ball on that? So this was a guy who could potentially have gone on to, Intercontinental Championship, United States Championship. And these are titles he's held before and contended for before, but this year particularly.
And if you think about it, his downfall came after he cashed in Money in the Bank.
Well, yeah, I mean, he did have a really good match with Tina, and it's unfortunate that he lost it so quickly, as his cash-in was a letdown ultimately. And yeah, his character kind of did go down south since then, but he had gotten really popular again as Mizdow, and he basically had a feud with the Miz already set to go. All he had to do was just turn the guy. He turned, and then they never really had a monster feud or anything like that. He kind of just faded back into obscurity. It's like, hello guys, you just made a star. What the hell just happened? You just basically just let it all go. And now they have to start from square one if they want to bring him back.
True. I mean, it's very disappointing when you see a talent that's unused because they're basically just destined for a release. I mean, you could probably tie that into Dolph Ziggler. I mean, like most of these stars, they get disappointed and leave. Look at Rey Mysterio. He left for AAA because
And then he
WWE
killed
had
the
this.
guy.
Yep, and then he killed the guy, supposedly, quote unquote. But
I
they
hear he's in Lucha Underground.
Yeah, they just signed him.
they actually have taped a couple of shows, and they say that he's actually confirmed on the show with the contract and everything. But I mean, it's pretty interesting. These talents they leave because the company has their own intentions, and they don't meet with their own the own wrestlers' expectations. Like Ray, for example, WWE was scared of Lucha Underground getting exposure, so they wanted to keep Ray to try to prevent any kind of exposure like that with Ray coming into Lucha and doing something there, which is kind of disappointing because you kind of look at that and you kind of say, so basically you're not really using this guy, you're not utilizing him because one, you're scared he's going to get injured because of history, and two, because of the fact that okay, if you do expose him, you're kind of inadvertently giving exposure to Lucha Underground, which is kind of it's kind of stupid to think about because it all comes down to a person trying to feed his family, you know.
Just imagine if Lucha Underground gets their hands on Daniel Bryan.
Oh my God.
That would be catastrophic, and that's probably what's happening with him right now and what their intentions are. But we'll see in the near future.
Or if he goes to TNA, that's gonna be something that gets people's attention too.
Or if he goes back to ROH or Japan, there's something big there too.
He could go anywhere, and he'll be an instant name. And
if he goes back to ROH, he'll be a god.
Yeah, it seems like WWE's trying to stretch it out so that they have control over the situation and they have ultimate say. Maybe they're bringing Bryan back at the absolute last moment before they can renew his contract. But I think it's kind of selfish in a way that they're doing that to him. And he was arguably the most popular guy for the last 3 or 4 years, and they're really hurting their own product, by doing that. But if they lose him wherever he goes, that promotion is gonna get a lot of followers just based off the popularity he had in WWE.
But if he goes to TNA, they're gonna change his name.
They probably will.
Not necessarily. Mike Bennett's Mike Bennett.
Brian Danielson, they'll just keep Brian Danielson. They won't just keep it to Daniel Bryan, because WWE owns that. But specifically with people that are on the verge or are being misused. Rich, you brought up Dolph Ziggler, another big name. He's brought up quality performance after quality performance after quality performance. He is like a workhorse, second to Cesaro, if not probably first. They're probably
third to Tyson Kidd.
Third to Tyson Kidd probably, but I mean, it's kind of it's interesting. They haven't given him any titles this whole year. They haven't given him any big spots, only certain spots, but they have
big feud was at Rusev.
Yeah, and they really haven't done. They really just put him out, to be buried with all these new stars and putting people over, which is sad. But I mean, there's always a tease of Dolph, is he gonna, will he jump? Will he jump? But I think that's probably the best move for him because he's been there for 10 years. He's gotten some good runs, but I think it's time to leave. But yeah, Rich, why do you elaborate on why he would be a disappointment?
It was just like Punk said in a promo against John Cena. I'm going to use the exact words. This has been the worst year of Ziggler's career. His only highlight was the match at WrestleMania for the IC title, the 8-man ladder match. Him and Bryan were going back and forth, basically. That was the highlight of the year for him.
Sure.
He's really had no big spots.
And they haven't really. I mean, if you saw, they were trying. It kind of looks like they were planning to have, if Bryan would have been healthy, to have Bryan and Dolph feud for the belt for the next couple coming months. Possibly a heel turn, maybe probably
up
a way
until
to
SummerSlam, probably.
Yeah, probably some kind of heel turn or something like that, and some kind of where the feud would evolve.
With Ziggler being the heel, because he plays a great heel.
I think he should definitely go back to heel, but the way that they're doing it, they're kind of dependent on Bryan, and said, oh, since he's not healthy, oh, what can we do? What can we do? Oh, I don't know, oh shit, we have too much talent. But that's the problem with WWE. If you take out all these titles, like you ununified the WWE and World Heavyweight Championships, you have opportunity to do something. But they don't do that. So instead, they just unify the titles, which...
I say they bring back the double title,
yeah,
the 2 titles, bring back the draft.
they definitely should. I think that they should just keep the same thing with a brand extension, but they don't want to do that because they feel like, okay, that era's done. Let's move on to a new era. But that kind of limits that kind of skims it down because in 3 hours of programming, how many talents can you fit in there?
Not even that. In 3 hours of Raw, how many matches do you actually have? That's more talking.
More talking, less.
You get your
wrestling.
first match almost 45 minutes into the show.
True. I mean, there's not that much, there's not quality coming out of that. There's actually just disappointment coming out of that. And you see Dolph getting more and more aggravated because of that. And there's going to be to a point where he's going to do the same thing CM Punk did. He's going to do the same thing where CJ Parker did. There's a point where he's going to get frustrated and leave. And there was a point, didn't he re-sign with WWE? Where his contract was up, and he re-signed with WWE. So, that kind of makes you think, do they have any plans for him? Or did they just want to take him? Because that's sad. He could have just left. He could have taken his ball and just left. Done. But I guess, he still wants to stay to keep his rep and everything. And
he probably got the highest money offering, and obviously when you've been at a place for so long, you already know you're going to get used. All right, maybe not in the biggest picture like you should be, but hey, at least you're providing for your family, you got more money, you just keep doing what you love. I mean, from a personal standpoint, I can see why you re-signed with WWE, but from a character standpoint...
Actually, I take back his biggest moment. Biggest moment of the year is announcing he's dating Dana Brooke.
Really? I've seen it. I've looked everywhere. Nothing's there online, though, for that.
Look on his Twitter.
Oh, really?
He was with her for Thanksgiving, for Christmas.
So probably that's signs of it. But again, WWE has that prohibition of talent and relationships and everything and all that stuff. But that's true. I mean, you could see maybe that might be the downfall of him too, because Dolph has done a lot of stuff that's been very, very
risque.
Yeah, risque. Because if you've seen. Actually, I saw something a couple of years ago where he said something bad about Triple H, and then something happened there, and then that totally brought him down. Where he lost the title, I think, in 2013 against Del Rio. They're saying something happened where they kind of brought him down because of the fact that he went ahead and he said something bad about management or Triple H or somebody.
Oh, he said something about booking.
Something, yeah, he said something risque, something very bad about that. But, nonetheless, he still puts on really good matches, and he can really, really show his good performance in those matches. But, moving on to matches, let's talk about the three, the matches that we got. We all got actually the same pick for match of the year. And we talked about this earlier on. The pick that we picked was Kevin Owens versus John Cena.
Mine was a different pick.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we all picked different matches.
Oh, right. You had something different, but yeah, me and Nick, I think you chose Kevin Owens versus Cena 1, right? Or was it 2?
No,
he picked Sasha versus Bayley.
Shoot, my bad.
We chose the same rivalry.
Right. Yeah. I keep thinking about that. But yeah, I mean, I chose Owens and Cena simply because of the fact. I mean, we already stated enough of it. Basically, that Cena and Owens, specifically the first night, the first match that they had. With Owens coming out, winning for the first time, very unexpectedly, unannounced, everything. That was pretty big for me. I mean, that's the highlight of his career, and that was probably the highlight of the year for that whole segment there. And that whole pay-per-view, that probably stole the whole show. But from there on, they really put on good matches, and they're again 5-star matches. But you can't further explain that. So I mean, yeah, it's up to and from there. I'll hand it over to you guys. What do you guys think is the match of the year?
Well, my pick for match of the year, I'm actually going out of company again. I'm picking Jay Lethal versus Roderick Strong 2 for the heavyweight title. Anytime those two got into a match, it was gold. The first one went to a draw. The one I picked was Lethal winning the match by pinfall after a lethal injection. And the third one was actually for the TV title because Nigel McGuinness said Roderick couldn't challenge for the heavyweight title, so he went for the second best, and Roderick won after a strong lock. So the second one was the best match out of all three, just for the fact after the draw, it was a great follow-up match. Nick, your pick?
Yeah, going off of, I actually think the third and final match was probably the best match of their series, just based off the, I mean, sure, we were probably used to the near falls and all that stuff, but the long-term result was actually a good one because it gave Strong some kind of award for, like, you know, having a really good 2015 as far as, like, in-ring competition. It gave him a belt, and Lethal was able to stay on top of the card as well, you know, because he was still world champion. But going off to my match of the year, this is a match I constantly watch whenever I get the chance because it's just so organically brilliant. Sasha Banks and Bayley from NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. This is the same exact arena of where SummerSlam was in, and this match had the biggest reaction that whole weekend. And you had two characters who were easily relatable. You could understand them. Sasha was the egotistical heel champion who just believed Bayley, you know, this good, nice little girl just wasn't up to her level, and Bayley was all about trying to prove her and all of her doubters wrong. So boom, you had a story already there. The in-ring psychology was brilliant. The technical maneuvers.
Sasha's entrance, you know, typical boss fashion. Everything was amped up for the TakeOver specials, and that's what I love about the entrances, too. It makes everything feel like a bigger show. And this match was start to finish, bell to bell, you know, constantly. They were thinking of new ways to grab people's attention. You know, you had Banks do the suicide dive flip, and then that reverse Frankensteiner, people are still impressed over because it literally just came out of nowhere. And then that lead up into the belly to belly finisher, that had the biggest reaction of the whole SummerSlam weekend. And, you know, that put NXT women's division on the map. In the biggest crowd NXT had to that point. You had the biggest match you could have at that point, and you know it was a good thing when those two same women headlined the next TakeOver event in an Iron Man match for that same title. It just shows dividends to just how far the NXT women's division has come along, and no one, you know, was going to say Sasha Bayley, you know, all right, this is something that's good, you know, maybe I've seen better. But when after that first match, the energy in that was so organic and it was so brilliantly done, smartly wrestled on both parts. Both of those ladies came out of it with, you know, looking better. There's no denying, you know, just how big of a match. Because when I look at a match of the year candidate, when I know I look at one, I want to see it for the entertainment factor, the storyline, how both characters come into it, and how they fare coming out of it. And you can't say anything but good things for both of those characters based on that match alone and all those moves. You know, it's a constant highlight reel. How many times do you see that reverse Frankensteiner shown over and over and over again? The crowd went the suicide dive.
And the suicide dive. The crowd went bonkers for all that. And can you blame them? And with just how awesome NXT has become over the past year, that match only just helped cement things further. And they're taking that momentum and they're taking it into 2016.
They basically took their ball and they are running with it.
Yeah, you know,
And that's
they're pretty much their own promotion now. That's what
well, I have one extra category to throw in. This is the pick for 2016. Who is your...
You mean predictions, right?
Yeah. Who is your star to watch for NXT for 2016?
Apollo Crews.
Apollo Crews.
Nick?
Apollo Crews.
I'm actually going a different gender. Carmella. I think she's going to blow up in 2016.
True. I say probably Del Rio. Because Del Rio, I mean, the way he came back, that's, something big. In a very big way, too. He was kicked out of the company for a racial incident, and then, then he came back, and that was something big now. Now you're going to see something ahead, what's going to happen in the future. We'll have to see and find out.
Nick, who's your main roster pick? Nick?
Main roster pick? It's tough to say, because I actually think maybe Kalisto. He's got the potential right now. I think if they stick with this trajectory, he could be a guy to talk about as far. He could be one of the top leaders on SmackDown. He's got a really good promo. He's really good on the mic, and he's really good in the ring. Sure, he's got Sin Cara, but I think that he's going to make the most use of the time while Sin Cara is out with an injury. And if they go far enough, I think he could go really far this year.
Definitely. I mean,
my pick for main roster to watch, Tyler Breeze.
Tyler Breeze. I pick Del Rio once again, because Del Rio, I mean, whether you have him in any position, he's always gonna, he's always gonna outperform everyone. But like when you see with Kalisto, you kind of see what kind of trend they're going towards. They're actually trying to target that majority audience, and they're actually trying to have some kind of, a fight out. And you could probably see some really good feuds with these two. I mean, on top of the fact that the U.S. title recently changed hands again, and taping. So that says something. They're probably doing something there where the title's going back and forth. They're probably going to have some big things in 2016.
We'll see. 2016 just started.
Yeah, 2016 just started, and it started off with a bang. Especially, with these big rumors happening. There's, the internet's buzzing. Especially now because it's WrestleMania season. There's so many things going on.
I'm waiting for one thing to happen, a big signing. I'm waiting for the Bullet Club.
Or the breakup of the Bullet Club, actually, because
the NXT Bullet Club.
NXT, I will have to see, because from what I know, they don't have all the pieces. Some of the pieces actually haven't signed. You name all the pieces: Bad Luck Fale, Tommy Tonga. Who else?
Well, Tonga just left NJPW, so he's a free agent.
Well, actually, I mean, but does he really want to go to WWE? That's kind of a thing right there.
He'll be with his family.
But his family's history too, Haku is in his whole family. They've had some issues with WWE in the past, and they've actually slandered them. So does WWE have it? It comes down to two things: does WWE have any interest, and two, do they have any interest? But we'll see from there. And that goes to anybody. Carl Anderson, you can name it. The biggest name right now, Shinsuke Nakamura. Great Japanese star, great talent. We'll have to see how he comes through. But
I see a feud with him and Itami.
Or probably one of the biggest underrated feuds that everybody's been talking about. Him and Daniel Bryan. I mean, we might see that in the future. Where he said a few years ago, he might say, "Oh, if I had to face," as he was Intercontinental Champion, he said, "If I had to face anybody, they said, or who would you face if you were, who would your next opponent be?" He said, "I want to face Shinsuke Nakamura." And he said, "Oh, I have some really good matches with him." But that's probably most of the if you see Kevin Owens, he said the same thing in an interview too. That if he had to fight anybody, it would be Shinsuke Nakamura because he has there's a kind of chemistry there, and some of the guys in ROH might say the same thing. But with these big signees, it's a big a big shift in the industry. But on top of that, it's WrestleMania season. A lot of big things are happening right now. Lucha's coming back soon. GFW, TNA, they're doing something big over there, supposedly, but we'll see what's going to happen.
Our next podcast will be the Royal Rumble, but I just wanted to get your guys' picks. Who do you think will win the Rumble?
Do you guys want to save that, or do you want for the next podcast, or do you want to say it now?
Nick,
Let's say it now.
say it now.
With the new stipulation, I mean, it seems like they're building Reigns to climb through yet another obstacle, which, I'm not against it. I'm going to have to see it to kind of fall for it, but, I think they're setting up Reigns to kind of beat the odds again.
True. I mean, I agree to an extent, too. For me, I'd say the same thing. But, there's been a lot of talk that Triple H might come back and have a feud with him. We'll have to see the validity of that. But what about you, Nick? What about you, Rich?
Well, there's two things. In reality, it's going to be Reigns winning it, but who would I like to see? Bray Wyatt.
I agree, too. But we'll have to see in the next few weeks.
Then you could rebuild the whole Bray Wyatt Roman Reigns feud. The anyone but you Roman.
You can do a lot of stuff with that, but we'll have to see what they do, because the last three Royal Rumbles have been really disappointing. With the fans walked out, booed the hell out of anybody that won. They made
Last
a whole
year
ruckus.
they wanted Bryan to win. Year before they actually wanted Roman to win.
But then Batista won, and then it was like a whole thing with that. But, we'll have to see what goes on. Anyways, we just wanted to close this off. This is the year-end in review podcast. Be sure to check out PWO, Pro Wrestling Opinion. Also follow us on Facebook. Also see us on Twitter, and, follow us to give us a follow. And
Don't forget to post our links.
Yeah, I'll put that down there if anything. And also, be sure to check out PWO. Be sure to check out what they got there. A lot of quality content, a lot of good reviews. What do you have next on there, Nick, on PWO?
Yeah, we're just starting off the year, watching lots and lots of wrestling. We're getting through it little by little. Seems like we got a lot of interesting stuff in store. We got Royal Rumble predictions coming up. We got maybe some opinion pieces coming out from one of my newest writers, named Anthony Zivatek. He's busting out some really good opinion pieces, focusing on several talent. He's done one on New Day, he's done one on Cesaro, Rollins, Bray Wyatt, really in-depth stuff that really studies the character, where it could go. So be sure to be on the lookout for those. As usual, we got our segment-by-segment breakdown, coverage, and reviews of almost everything that's on a national TV spectrum, whether it's WWE, TNA, ROH, Lucha Underground, Pro Wrestling Syndicate. We also started covering a couple of new companies, West Coast Wrestling Connection and AML Wrestling, which is America's Most Liked Wrestling Live. Both of those are available on YouTube. If you want to check those out, feel free to give those promotions a look. Wrestling isn't only WWE. There's a whole world of promotions out there. We're going to have Lucha Underground coming back at the end of the month, so be sure to check that out too. And sure, we'll always have our throwback pay-per-views if you want to see WCW, ECW stuff. If you need any suggestions, anything you want to see us cover, feel free to give us a shout out. Just look on ProWrestlingOpinion.com, check out everything we got, and that's that.
Yep, there you go. Check out PWO. Be sure to check that out. Also, be sure to check us out on YouTube and follow our Facebook pages. You can follow PWO on Facebook. You can also follow us on Facebook. And also be sure to follow us on Twitter as well. Links are below.